about one thing, and that's relationship. In fact, it's another word for life, is relationship. I'm not sure about your culture, but in my culture, the three things they don't teach us anything about, which would make life a lot easier if they did, is yourself, self-understanding. They don't teach us about relationships, how they work, how to build them. And they don't teach us anything about money, how to manage it. So these are the three big gaps in our education. And so tonight, I offer you a few thoughts. We could probably go on for many hours to talk about it, but we've only got an hour. So I'll offer you a few thoughts to begin with and share my screen, hopefully, as well. And hopefully that will raise just as many questions as it does answers, because there is nothing more challenging in our life than building better relationships. So without any further ado, maybe just worth mentioning that Baba gives us the shortcut, the shorthand answer to the question of the challenge of relationships. And that he says very frequently, put one soul between you and the person you're exchanging with. Put Brahma Baba in the middle. Always hold Brahma Baba in the middle, so that whatever your communication is goes to him, through him, to the other person. It sounds easy. It sounds like a neat idea, and I'm sure it's just as challenging. But he does say that if you keep doing that, then eventually what you will be communicating is pure and true. So that's the simple way, and if you like, the shorthand way that Baba gives us. Um, but I'm sure that even then, there still needs to be an intention behind your communication, behind your response to the other person. And it's the intention that I really want to look at tonight, in which may give you some ideas, may give you some insights. And if not, I'm sure there'll be sufficient questions at the end. So let's see if I can share my screen with you a little bit. Oh, yeah, very good. And there's the title page, Relationship Building Behaviors. I'm assuming that you are getting that. If you are, don't need to say anything, but if you're not, do shout. And so tools, methods, and insights to build and maintain effective relationships. And they can be summed up with one word, with what's the intention, intentionality. And at every relationship, every exchange, they're required to be a clear intention. So we all have what's called a difficult person in our life. I'm sure you have a DP present in your own life somewhere, and they just have to walk in the room and your face goes into a little grimace. Or maybe your teeth show and you go, oh, nice to see you. But inside, you're going, oh, not you again. So what is a difficult person? Different definitions, but they say that a difficult person is someone who does what you don't want them to do, or who doesn't do what you do want them to do. And then you don't know what to do about them. Now, I hope that translates okay. They say that a difficult person is someone who does what you don't want them to do and who doesn't do what you do want them to do. Yeah. And then you don't know what to do about them. So the key, the thread that runs through this whole presentation is really shifting yourself out of resistance, because that's why you have a difficult person. You are in resistance to that person, into acceptance. Yeah. And so from resistance to acceptance, in a sense, it's the key for our spiritual life, I think. And if you can build the relationship based on the acceptance of the other, no matter how difficult they've been in the past, then you're well ahead of the game. So the principles of self-responsibility in any relationship goes something like this, in simple terms. It's not what you say or do that makes me feel this way. Tends to be, in conclusion, yes, you made me feel, you made me think, you made me do what I did, but they didn't. The other person never does. It's what I do with what you say or do that makes me feel this way. It's a very simple principle of self-responsibility, a simple way of saying it. So, and in the long term, no one can hurt me, but I can use you to hurt myself. No one can hurt me, but I can use you to hurt myself, which is me taking responsibility for my own thoughts, my own feelings at any given moment. Not easy to do after a lifetime of education, which has taught me that the other person is to blame. The other person is responsible. The other person should not say or do what they just did. Now, if someone sticks a knife in your body, sure, they are responsible. But any emotion, any feeling, any thought that you have in response to that is your responsibility. So for your emotions and thoughts and feelings, you are 100% responsible, although you might not be 100% responsible for any physical affliction they will deliver on your being, because there is such a thing as pain and suffering. Pain is what happens to the physical body, whereas suffering is mental and emotional. So there's quite a difference between the two. So pain, you can do something you can't do anything about very often. Someone might stand on your toes and you can't do anything about the pain that comes from your foot right up to your brain and you feel it. Oh, and if another person has done that, then you want to blame them. But suffering is the mental and emotional process by which we first of all respond inside ourselves. So let's, for example, say that someone drops a knife on your leg. There's a moment of pain. Absolutely. But if I still blame you 1 week later, or indeed 1 hour later, it means I've spent a week suffering. So I'm suffering, which is a kind of painful state of emotion, painful state of feeling. But it's not really pain, it's more like suffering. And pain is the knife entering your leg, and it's physical pain. It's a physical experience. So I could have just said, well, that's okay. It was an accident and move on. Yeah. If someone does something which affects you physically, then just to say, okay, that was an accident and move on. Or do a sumo. I have a good friend whose um, logo or image there or emblem is a sumo wrestler, and he uses the word sumo, short term SUMO, to sum up his philosophy of the sumo wrestler, which is in all his books. And sumo stands for shut up and move on. Shut up and move on. Or you can just keep going over what happened in 1 second and go over it for a week, for a month, for a year, and hold a grudge against the person who dropped the knife or who made the pain. So once again, you're moving from resistance to acceptance by saying, okay, that's fine, let's move on. You're moving out of resistance and into acceptance of the individual. So there's a little formula for success in life, E plus R equals O. And E stands for event, plus response equals the outcome. Now, I'm not sure how this will figure in your language, but in English, E plus R equals O. Event plus response equals outcome. So let's say the event is Dave gives his opinion. Dave opines. It's a short word for opinion. Dave gives his opinion. And your response is, well, I disagree. I think you're entirely wrong. And so if the disagreement carries on, it'll enter into an argument and you will suffer emotionally. Therefore, the relationship is in need of repair. All because you resisted Dave's opinion by your disagreement. I have a different belief and I'm right and you're wrong. And therefore there is suffering inside myself, which is emotional. And so I need to give time and energy to repair the relationship. Second example, let's say Mary is late for a meeting. And so you say, you're late. You've let me down, as some people sometimes do. You're late. You've let me down. And so therefore there is emotional suffering and the relationship will need some kind of repair. Once again, the use of time and energy. And once again, if you can move from resistance to acceptance, Dave, that's your opinion. That's very nice. The way I see it is such and such. What do you think of that? Or to Mary, you're late. Okay, we've just got to start anyway without you. Let's make sure we're on time for the next meeting. And so there is a tacit acceptance that nobody's perfect and that I will be free of any emotional reaction. So the intention inside is to control the other person. And this takes many forms, many faces in our behavior. And when you try to control them, whether it's their beliefs or whether it's the time they arrive at a meeting, by becoming upset emotionally, you've attempted to control them. So you will always fail. Eventually, you might succeed once or twice, but you'll always fail. Plus the fact that you're in emotional suffering. You're in that state. So your resistance is going to increase unless you learn to influence. And so the shift from control to influence is the same shift as resistance to acceptance. When you move into an influence, then you're understanding, there's patience, you're empathetic, you're very supportive of the other person. You're able to bring these four aspects into your behavior towards them. And so you're in the process of being influential. And of course, the acceptance is mutual because they're more likely to accept you, and you are tacitly saying, I accept just what you've done. So you seek to try to control and shift into influence. That, of course, is a big subject on its own, and maybe you can do that with someone at a later date. So relationship building behaviors, or what I call your relationship repair kit, has a number of various principles which I can apply, I can use intentionally to how I respond to others. Number one is realize and accept responsibility for what you think and what you feel at all times. Not easy to do after a lifetime of being taught not to take responsibility, to blame the other and complain at the other, be critical of the other. But I know deep down, the basic principle is I am always responsible for what I think and feel. This is perhaps the principle that I find the hardest and the most common that I have to get managers and people in seminars. I have to get them over this hurdle that they are responsible for whatever they blame or complain or upsetness or whatever their response may be, is because they're not taking responsibility. They are projecting it onto the other person. And that's very hard, especially in emotionally hot situations. Check your creation of your version of the other person. I'm not sure if you're aware, but in relationship, where you might see the other person as over there, they're always primarily in your consciousness. Everyone, everything exists in two places at once. Outside yourself, over there, the other side of the room or the other side of the garden, but whoever they are, whatever it is, also exists in your mind. And so I need to look at how I'm creating them in my mind. And I might be creating them differently than anyone else. In fact, fairly sure, if you imagine three people, and person number one is hated by number two, but liked a lot by number three. So two people have a relationship with number one hates them, and the other one likes them. Why? Because they're creating their version of number one in their consciousness. And therefore, that's their reality. Their reality is their version. So how are you creating? Check your creation of the other person. Are you remembering past mistakes they've made? Are you bringing that into your consciousness as you create them and therefore blaming them for the past? Or are you able to accept them as they are right now in the present moment? This is challenging, but in a sense, this is what relationships are for. Ask yourself, instead of what can you get, what can I give? You walk into the room and your first thought, usually or very often, with regard to the other person, is what can I get from them? What do they need to do? What will make me happy? What will they give me? And so, can I get into the habit of asking myself, what can I give them? What can I produce for them? Before I try and get something from them. Yeah, which is, of course, a very common behavior in this family. Lay the foundation of respect. Can I do that? Am I able to respect the other person? We often talk about respect and wonder what's the definition of respect? And in simple terms, it's probably around the worth and the value of the other person. So to have self-respect is to know my worth and my value. And that's been programmed out of me by the way we've been brought up in different cultures in different ways. We've been conditioned to lose respect for ourselves in certain situations. In other words, lose that sense of value, that sense of worthiness that comes from inside ourselves. And so can I do that with others? Can I see that? Visualize that. See the worth, see the value of the other person. And that becomes the basis of the interaction, if I can do so. Free yourself from expectations. Yeah, if we have any expectations whatsoever, it means we have some kind of desire to get something or for something to come to us, to come into our sphere of receipt, if you like. And it's called expectation. And it's, in a sense, the death of relationship. Whenever you have an expectation of somebody, you're guaranteed to be disappointed at some point in the future. It's a guarantee. So is it possible not to have expectations? Possible, but not easy. Maybe the middle road is to have expectations, to expect the best of the other, but if they don't produce the best, not to make my happiness dependent on it. Now, if they can see, yes, I expect them to do well, but if they can see that my happiness is not dependent on it, it takes the pressure off them. They see that I'm still okay if they don't meet my expectations. Yeah. And so to have expectations, but to not make my happiness dependent on it is a little bit of a secret, but challenging to enact, that's for sure. If you ever feel cornered by someone, and sometimes we feel cornered, they're always wanting something, our time and our attention, then the way out of the cornering by that person to help them free themselves is to serve your way out. In other words, give them time, give them attention, give them money, give them wisdom, give them what they want, but be careful, don't give them too much and don't give it too often. But serve it, give it in the sake of service that might help them in some way or other. And in that way, you serve them and you lessen their dependency, because that's why you're feeling a little bit cornered. You feel as if they have become dependent on you listening, on your presence, on your behaviors, on you accepting them. Let them down gently. It's a little bit like the alcoholic. When the alcoholic is recognized in the family wants to fix them, wants to bring them, wants to cure the alcoholic of their addiction to alcohol. And in fact, that's the last thing to do. That is the worst way to help that person, because as soon as you do, you're in resistance to their alcoholism. And they feel that, and that makes them want it even more. So the secret is to accept them as they are, just as they are at this moment in time, and let them go down to their lowest point in their addiction, but be present for them. Yeah. Not allowing them to be dependent, but say, I'm always here for you. Thank you very much and good night. I'm always here to help you. Thank you very much and good night. And so make them less and less and less gradually addicted to the alcohol. So if you feel cornered by somebody, serve your way out little by little by little. Don't take anything personally. Nothing is personal. Even when a person wants to be personal towards you and fires their insult towards you, just remember that their insult is a form of pain or suffering that they are expressing, they are feeling for themselves. In other words, they're creating their version of you in the negative light of their mood. Their mood, their emotion, there is allowing them to create the version of you in their mind in a negative way. And so they throw it at you and you take it personally, and suddenly you're into an argument, a debate. What's wrong? What's the matter? And so don't take anything personally, no matter what it is people say or do. Not easy. It's a challenge, especially after, once again, a lifetime where we are taught to take things very personally, where the world is constantly calling on us to affirm how great we are, how good we are, how really we are aspiring to be like everyone else. And suddenly someone tells us or criticizes us that we're not like anyone else, then we take it very personally. So these kind of situations, great tests for building your muscle, your mental muscle of not taking anything personally even when somebody throws something negative at you about you. And then number 8, see them as your teacher. Don't tell them that, just see them as that. Hold them in your consciousness, in your mind, and just say to yourself, what is this person trying to teach me? What do I need to learn from this person? And they may be pointing the finger, projecting onto you, giving you some negative feedback, but all the time you're humble enough to see them as your teacher, as a lesson that's entered your life, albeit briefly, that you can learn from, that you can grow from. It takes a fair amount of humility to turn, well, I think someone in Israel is quite famous for putting on her emails, the shift from everyone and everything happens to me to everyone and everything happens for me. In other words, what are they trying to teach me? Maybe they're not doing it deliberately. They're just in front of you. They're just relating to you in such a way that whatever it is they send to you will contain some kind of lesson, some kind of insight. So it's happening for you. And so the intention is to make that shift from resistance, it's happening to me, oh my God, to happening for me. Oh yeah, okay. What is it about this person that I can learn?
Mike, sorry for interrupting you. They're asking the translators if you can speak a little bit slower.
Slow down, slow down. I've tried so hard to slow down.
I'm sure.
Thank you, no problem. I will speak much more slowly now. So number 9 is seek to understand them. That there is a lovely old principle which goes something like, seek to understand before you seek to be understood. So it's the reason why we have 2 of these at the side of our head and 1 of these at the front. And so do more listening, which is what they're designed for, than telling. And usually when we're trying to say, trying to tell, trying to explain something, what lies behind it is me projecting, forcing, imposing. There's some kind of egotistical construct inside our consciousness. And so seek to understand them before you seek to be understood by them. Yeah. And that's usually quite effective. Once again, you're moving from resistance into acceptance. So by listening, by questioning, by asking them, what do they really mean? You're saying, I accept your ideas, your point of view. And only then will they return that acceptance and be prepared to listen. So it's out of resistance to acceptance. And finally, see the person and not the position of the person. That's really difficult for most of us because we've been brought up by parents, usually, normally, not all the time, but brought up by perhaps one parent who acted as the authority figure. And so the authority figure conditioned us to feel comfortable, or at least as comfortable as we could, under their authority for many years. And then we leave home and we join the organization and we find the authority figure, the parental figure, becomes the manager or the person in the organization who carries the authority of the position that they have. So we cease to be able to understand, react, respond to them as a human being, and we do so as a position, just like we did when we were young, when we were children. And so the only way to really connect and relate to that person is to see them as a human being and not as a position, to respond to them as a person and not as an authority in the organization. And if I can make that shift, then I can move once again from a form of resistance within myself into a very much more comfortable acceptance for what they are. So these are 10 principles which you can apply in different aspects of relationship. And This is just a summary of the 10 principles. If you want to take a screenshot to remind you at some stage in the future, or you'd like to take a photograph with your camera, then this gives you the 10 principles, the 10 actions which constitute the relationship repair kit. If relationships need repairing in your life. But maybe there's an 11th, number 11. And there's a very famous guy, and there's a lot of talk about this guy at the moment. It's called Nikola Tesla. And if you do any surfing of the web, you'll find he's quoted quite a lot. And he's quite famous for his quote, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, vibration, and frequency." And we are very aware that, World Meditation every month, meditation every morning is the generation of certain vibrations, which we know are not for us as much as for those who are remembered by us, who receive vibrations of peace, vibrations of love, vibrations of contentment. We put those vibrations into the world, knowing that will change the world. And so maybe the 11th is send them your good wishes, or think of the person that you have a difficult relationship with. Have just good wishes, good thoughts, good feelings towards that person, and send them that vibration, that energy from your own consciousness. And as you do, they will receive it. They won't know it's coming from you, perhaps, but they will receive it, and it will begin to heal the relationship. So the next time you see them, there will be a much better connection with that person. Not just the healing of the relationship or the toing and froing of energy, but you will feel better about them within yourself. And so the healing of your own consciousness from any interactions in the past which were not that pleasant. So send them your good wishes, good feelings, and watch that transform the relationship. Number 11, let's say. So let me stop there and see if there's any questions or anything bothering you, or battleship gray, as they say, in anything that I've shared. And let's see if there's any questions. In the chat page, there's 2 comments.
No, just to speak slowly, the comments. I don't see any questions yet.
No.
I try to keep some notes of what you said because it was really very fast.
Was it really? Well, you have
Yeah.
to break in and slow me down.
No,
Yeah.
they didn't ask. Just now they just asked us to be slowly.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. About respect, can you say a few things? Oh, there is something here. The 11th point, what if you feel lots of resistance towards an individual? How do you send them good wishes and feelings in such a situation?
Well, we have regular times of meditation, whether it's Amrit Vela or before the class. And so these are opportunities to be the master of your consciousness and control the vibrations that you're sending out. So you can give a little bit of time to hold that person in your consciousness for a few minutes, hold them in a positive light. And if that is very difficult at first, then do it again. And if it's difficult the second time, do it again. Then keep doing it until you can hold that person in a positive light and send them good wishes. Yeah. You'll know whether it's got through or not the next time you interact with them. You'll know as time goes on, as you practice doing that, that your ability to be the master of your consciousness, move into that positive energy, becomes easier and easier and easier with regard to that person. Yeah. And so it's just practice. That's why we have various times in the day called traffic control. It's 3 minutes where I am, it's maybe 1 minute where you are. I would recommend you increase to at least 2 minutes, and then that's a time to practice. Definitely.
Yes, another question. You said Baba says keep Brahma Baba between you and another person, but shouldn't we keep Shiv Baba rather than Brahma Baba, a human, between you and another person?
Yes, you can do. It's just that Brahma Baba is easier for some to keep because it's more human. As a human being, you're interacting with a human being. So you imagine how you're going to interact with them being Brahma Baba. It's through Brahma Baba that you're creating the action, letting the intention have its free will, if you know what I mean. You can bring Shiv Baba down into it if you really want to, but when he suggested putting it, holding him always between you and the other person.
Yes. So another question. All difficult relationships are karmic or are mirrors probably or lessons? Are karmic all the relationships?
Well, we've had quite a debate about this, and you can think about this and have your own debates in your own centers. The very fact that we talk about karma, we tend to talk about karma as a relational thing, as something that's happening between two people, two groups of people, two nations, two cultures, etc. But it's been suggested, and it's quite hard to see, that there's only really one kind of karma, and that is what you've got recorded in your consciousness. In other words, your past karma action basically has left a set of sanskars which are now in operation in your life. And so whoever comes in front of you, you don't have a karmic account with them. And we enjoy saying, oh, I've got a karmic account with them. Oh, so and so, and they don't get on with each other. There's obviously some karma going on there. It's not so much them, it's more all within you, all within the individual, all within your consciousness. So I would recommend you have a discussion on this basis as to separate what karma is within the self, one, or what karma is between the individuals. Because one of the conclusions we came to was that there isn't a karma between individuals, but the karma is primarily held by the individual, by the person themselves in their consciousness. So it makes for a very interesting debate, conversation, exploration, whatever you want to call it, to have over dinner, over the table. And so work it out, see for yourself. You could say all relationships are karmic, or you could say it's all in your mind, it's all in your consciousness. Up to you.
Thank you. There is another question. Can we say that healing happens if I'm busy in elevated thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, you're raising your consciousness into a more elevated state. When there is karma, when there is upsetness, there's some kind of emotion present, some kind of suffering. And that means that if you imagine the energy of consciousness, it's just distorted by the memory of that past action. So that's what's distorting the energy, and you feel suffering because of that. So raise your consciousness and you raise it above the distortion, away from the distortion. The distortion becomes less and less and less. And so that's what we're doing. That's what healing, spiritual healing is raising it beyond the distortion. And so eventually the distortion becomes less and less, and it heals itself. It just goes away. So the distortion is fixed. And of course, this is what yoga does. This is what yoga with the Supreme, with Brahma Baba, with Shiv Baba does, is that you link to that soul. And that soul is in a state of harmony. There's no distortion. There's no karma. There's nothing wrong. And so it's like a little bit like you've heard of darshan in India. When you sit in the presence of the yogi or the guru, you receive darshan. In other words, their vibration is so high that just being in their presence raises your vibration. Yeah, it raises your consciousness so high. And it's healing. It's very healing in the moment. And so the more you do it, the more healing it is. But of course, as soon as you leave the company of the guru or whatever, as soon as you leave that vibration, it comes back down again in your own time, in your own way, into that distortion of your consciousness. So eventually, that's why we regularly have yoga with God, with Shiv Baba, because that soul's energy is pure. And therefore, he talks about absolving your sins. What are your sins? It's just your karma, the karma of the past. They were sinful. And so that's left a distortion in the energy of your consciousness that remains. And of course, every time you see something that reminds you of that past sinful karma, then you're in that distortion again. And so you're sitting in the company of Shiv Baba, and you're receiving his vibrations, his non-distorted vibrations of his consciousness, and it's healing you. It's healing the self. So eventually, the distortion disappears. The distortion absolves the sin, the karma that's in the memory of the past. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how our sins are cleared.
Thank you so much. That was great. There is a question here. How to handle a narcissist?
They're challenging. Everybody has a little bit of narcissism because we've all got what's something called the ego, whether it's extrovert ego or introverted ego. We're all attached to something. And so we're all a little bit narcissistic. It's not just in one person, it's in all of us at the end of the cycle. And so we're learning to deal with it, first of all, in ourselves. This principle of resistance to acceptance is you may see it in the other, but you can only see it in the other because you have it within yourself. You are already narcissistic within yourself. So move to from resistance to acceptance in the other. When you see them as a narcissistic and you have a label, a judgment that you've made, you say, oh, he's a narcissist, I'm not getting on with him. Just remember that that's also within you. So you resist him, you resist her because of the label you've put on them. But remember that you're resisting yourself. And so you have to accept that you are also a narcissist. And so self-acceptance is essential in the process of seeing them differently. First of all, yourself, your version of them, and then them in reality. And so it's this movement from resistance to acceptance. Don't label. We say we don't label, or we shouldn't label, or we're so conscious means we don't label. But of course we do. We stick labels on people. they're a narcissist, they're bad, they're terrible. And so remember, it starts with me, within me. And as soon as you accept everything happens within you first, as soon as you accept, then you cease to project so strongly. You cease to project onto the other with a label, if you can accept it within yourself as yourself. And so that's part of the process of settling your karma, of absolving your sins.
Very nice explanation. As long as you want to believe in that and try to do it, because sometimes, people from the East, we're different than people from the West. So we're very spontaneous and we just speak whatever comes into our mind.
Exactly. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, and we need probably more effort to do.
Stay cool, stay calm, stay separate, stay detached. Yep.
Yeah, somebody said before, but sometimes it's better to go away. Is a question. Is it better to go away sometimes?
Sometimes it is, yeah. Your wisdom tells you not to be present in the room with someone who's very difficult to get on with, and you're not capable of accepting them as they are. You just find it so hard, and so you've got so much resistance to them, so much blame. It's often better to walk away and then gather your strength. You'll meet them again for sure. You know, although you'd like to be on your own, you will find yourself in their company again. So the next time, can you be stronger? Is it easier to accept them as they are? Or is it just the same? And so walk away again. It's okay. It's not problem.
Yes. There is another question that is very interesting. Is there really any give and take in relationships in golden age?
I haven't got a clue. I don't remember. Yeah. Um, I'm sure there's give and take, but there's no remaining. There's nothing remains. I'm sure that what is given and what is taken is what's called elevated karmic interactions. There's no taking from somebody and then believing it. This is what we do today. If someone insults us today, we go away from that person. We can't stop thinking, maybe they're right. Or what is that correct? Did they say I'm a nasty person? Am I really that nasty person? And so there isn't that in the golden age because our consciousness is so simple. Yeah, it's so simple. It's so accepting. It's so beautiful. It's so perfect. But now we have this mind, and the mind has got so many different programs conditioned into it about who we are, what we are, where we're from, where we are, the kind of person that we're trying to be, etc., etc. There's so many little conditionings, programmings in our consciousness. And so it's very hard to wipe the slate clean just like that. But that's what Baba says. In 1 second, you can be there. You can get there. And being there means simplifying everything. And if you think about the golden age, it's when we're at our most innocent. Yeah, we're like children. Budus, as they're sometimes called. And so that's super innocent. And so in a sense, we have to get back to that state of super innocence here before the end of this drama, this part of the cycle. We have to get the sanskars of being super innocent again, of accepting whatever anyone's doing, whatever they're saying, just accepting it as it is and not taking anything personally. Yeah. And so from where I am now to reach that stage near the end, God, it's a challenge, isn't it? It feels like a big challenge. But very soon, if not already, drama is going to help. Drama is the teacher. Drama is going to call us forward and be examples for the world. Yeah. Are you aware of that? It's going to happen very, very soon. The final period of the final period.
Yes. you're right about that. The drama. We see what's happening every day, every minute in this world.
Yeah.
Baba says everything will come suddenly, but now we see the signs of that. There is also another question. How should you discipline, correct, or penalize someone if they have misbehaved or broken rules?
Well, if they've broken rules, just remind them of the rule, but do it with a lot of love. Yeah. In other words, wear the velvet glove. Lay down the law, the rules, with love. And if the rules are the way we live around here as a community, then just remind them of that when the time is right. But don't punish, you can't punish another person. They've forgotten how to observe the right rules for some reason or other. Something in their consciousness has happened and it's made them forget of the way that we've agreed to do things. Yeah, and so they're not a bad person, they've just forgotten. Or if they have deliberately forgotten, A, do you really know that? And B, if that's true, then that is okay. Again, remind them of the rules that we live around here. So remind them of the rules with respect, with a lot of love. It's like, when the teenager will leave everything lying around very untidy on the floor, and the mother expects the teenagers to pick up their socks, and so they're making a mess all the time. And oh, I can't stand this mess, says mother. And so the only way to help the child is not to tell him he's wrong all the time, not to resist, the way he's laid out his room very untidily, but to pick up the socks yourself, but to do it with a lot of love, to do it with a lot of respect for the individual. And eventually they will get the message. They will reciprocate. They will return to the scene, and they will say, well, I respect my mother because she respects me, and I respect my mother's wishes to lift I respect the rules of the house to lift things out, to lift things up and not be untidy. And so it's the only way to do it is to show them with love and respect how to do it, how to act, how to be in a certain situation.
Yes, thank you. Sometimes mothers, we cannot discipline the kids, even with love, because we have many things to do, and then we are always stressed. And with the kids, especially the young ones, we don't have the patience to teach them or behave them with love. And we say, okay, do what you want, I will fix it, and that's it.
Yeah.
But with other people, it's not that easy. For other people, you have to keep your distances, isn't it? And at the same time, give them love and respect. But if you cannot have that, what can you do?
Yes. What can you do? And that is really the essence of our journey back to a state of consciousness, which is something like the original state, is what you've just shared. It's about the practice. You'll get many opportunities to practice. Many situations will arise to remain in your respect, to remain a loving being towards everyone around you. And if you can't right now, oh, I don't want to, I'm so busy, then really it's you and just you revising what you value in a sense. If you've give me an example, I'll give you an example. I say to Mary, and will you have dinner with me on Wednesday night? And she says, no, I'm so busy. I've got too much to do, and I wash my hairs on a Wednesday night, so I won't have this dinner with you. But she doesn't really, she's not really too busy. She is saying that she values doing other things more than she values having dinner with me. So it's really about your values on the inside. It's what you care about on the inside. If you really care about our role at this time in the cycle as examples of elevated behavior, then you will always find the time, the energy, the inclination to be that for, as an example, to someone else. Yeah. It's about your personal values.